This is Mother Murderer Podcaster, the show about the most outrageous and the best made for TV movies of the 80s and 90s. I'm Lewis Jordan, a writer.
Usually, the other host would be Katie Madonna Lee, a filmmaker. But she died of a mysterious blood disease earlier today. I'm Sadie, Katie's identical twin sister from Texas. I'm so pleased to meet you. What did you say your name was? Lewis?
Katie, I know that that's you. You're just wearing a wig.
People mistake me for my identical twin all the time.
Okay, whatever you say. So this week we are covering one of the classics of 90s TV movies, which is also the namesake of this podcast. The time has come for the 1991 ABC made for TV movie Wife, Mother, Murderer, starring the magnificent and the iconic Judith Light of Who's the Boss and Transparent fame. Judith Light was the undisputed queen of 80s shoulder pads, and she was also a queen of 90s TV movies. Um, and this movie is based on the real life story of Audrey Marie Hilley, who poisoned her husband and tried to poison her daughter and a whole bunch of other people, which would be enough to justify a TV movie. But Marie's story goes off the rails. This is probably the most bizarre true crime case that I've ever heard of. Um, it's like she knew that it was going to be a TV movie, and then she just gives us plot twist after plot twist. Um, this movie is so much fun. After all, out of all the TV movies that we've watched so far, I think that this is the one I would be most likely to put on for a room full of drunk gay men. Uh, so I'm going to summarize the plot, and you're going to think that I'm making it up, but I promise you, they actually left stuff out of the movie. That's how bananas the story is. So, so the film opens in Alabama, and Audrey Marie Hilley, who's an attractive, well dressed, and well mannered Southern lady with an impressive helmet of hair, is caring for her sick husband, Frank, in their suburban home. And they live with their daughter, Carol, who's a tomboyish teenager. Marie takes Frank to the doctor, but no one can figure out what's wrong with him. And one night, he wanders out onto the lawn, confused and babbling nonsense. And not long after, he dies. And the cause of death is listed as hepatitis. Marie grew up poor, but she wanted to live like the rich people in her town who lived up on the hill. She married Frank while she was still in high school. And even though she lived comfortably with him, it wasn't enough. She felt like she was held back by her husband and her family and should have been a rich man's wife. So Marie gets a job as a secretary and immediately starts an affair with her boss. And she begins to get mysterious phone calls. And after a mysterious fire breaks out in her house, Marie moves into a new house with Carol. And using her husband's $30,000 life insurance policy, she buys fancy dresses and shoes and furniture. And it turns out that Marie owes a lot of people money and she wants a new car. So she gets her daughter to help her torch the old car to collect the insurance money. So pretty soon, Marie has burned through all of the life insurance money and she's bouncing checks all over town. She needs money fast. Suddenly, Carol gets very sick and is rushed to the hospital, just like her father. And the cause is mysterious. So Marie cares for Carol. She takes her to various hospitals and she starts to give Carol injections at home, which she claims are supposed to help, but Carol just gets sicker. One day at the hospital, Marie is arrested for writing bad checks. And at the same time, a doctor notices white lines on Carol's fingernails, a telltale sign of arsenic poisoning. It turns out that Marie took out a life insurance policy on her husband and then poisoned his food with arsenic. And unless you're testing specifically for arsenic, you can't detect it. It's flavorless, and its effects mirror a number of other more common conditions. And after she killed her husband, she took out a life insurance policy on her daughter and was trying to kill her to collect more money. So Marie is charged with murder and attempted murder, but during her trial, the boss that she'd been stooping bails her out of jail and she disappears. And then Marie reappears in Florida going by the name Robbie Hannon. And she's on the hunt for a husband. And she meets recently divorced John Homan. So John is a pushover for Robbie, and they get married and they move to New Hampshire. But whether she's Marie or Robbie, she's still the same person, and she starts spending money on things that she can't afford. So Robbie gets a job at a factory. But after a while, there's a problem with the fake social security number that Robbie gave. And she needs to change identities again. So Robbie suddenly announces that she has a rare blood disease and she has to go to Texas to see a specialist. And she's going to stay with her identical twin sister, Terry, who she's never mentioned before. And she won't let her husband go with her. So then John gets a call from Texas, and it's Terry who tells him that Robbie died during the night. And Terry is going to fly to New Hampshire to be with John during their grief. And so then Marie shows up at the airport as Terry with a blonde bubble hairdo and a bubbly personality. And John is the world's easiest mark, so he believes it. And pretty soon, Terry has fallen in love with John. And of course, John falls for her too. But when Terry visits her old job at the factory, one of her coworkers knows that that's Robbie with the dye job in the bedazzled denim pantsuit. Um, so the coworker does some research and finds that nothing about Terry's story adds up. And she calls the police, who get Terry to admit that her real name is Audrey Marie Hilley. They run a check on her name and they find out that she's been charged with murder in Alabama. So Marie's going to jail. Now, you would think this would be the end of the movie, but John visits Marie in jail, and against all logic, he forgives her. He believes that she's innocent, and he decides he's going to stand by her. So Carol testifies against her mother, and Marie's found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in Anniston, Alabama, her hometown. And she's a model prisoner. But after a few years, then she gets visiting privileges with her husband, John. And after she meets John in a motel, then Marie makes a run for it. And the police search and they can't find her. But a few days later, Marie shows up at the door of her childhood home. And the usually neat and pretty Marie looks unrecognizable after living in the woods for several days in the cold and pouring rain. Marie collapses from hypothermia and she dies of a heart attack. And Marie, who wanted so badly to escape the poverty that she grew up in and live in the luxury that she felt that she deserved, ultimately died in degradation and filth in the very place that she'd been trying to escape. It's poetic justice. Oh, hi, Katie.
Oh, I'm back. It's me, Katie. I didn't die from a blood disease. My identical twin, Sadie, put rat poison in my coffee. I recovered.
Oh my God.
Well, while you were distracting her with your plot summary, the police surrounded her. There was a shootout, and she yelled, "You'll never take me alive!" and ran out into a hail of bullets. You didn't see any of that?
No, I was reading the summary.
Oh. Well, it was very dramatic. Anyway, I'm here.
how do I know that it's really you and not an imposter? I'll have to ask you something that only Katie would know. Katie, what is the best outfit that Judith Light wears in Wife, Mother, Murderer?
That's a trick question. It is a tie between her stonewashed denim jumpsuit with rhinestones and shoulder pads and her peach colored jumpsuit with rhinestones and shoulder pads.
That is the correct answer. Hi, Katie. It's good to have you back.
Woo!
Yeah. So these outfits, Judith Light's outfits
Oh,
in this movie,
they're to die for.
they're to die for. And they
They're to
only
die
get
for.
and they only get more intense as she gets crazier. The outfits get crazier and bigger, and the hair gets bigger. And like you said, I think the jumpsuits are like the pinnacle. They're the pinnacle because that's her Terry outfit. So they're the pinnacle of the craziness
Oh,
and the pinnacle of
so
the
good.
fashion.
And I have looked for rhinestone jumpsuits, denim jumpsuits like that my whole life. And one time I was at some like store many years ago and I have it still, but see it was an 80s jumpsuit, so it didn't fit me. And it was a denim jumpsuit, wasn't rhinestone, but I still have it, but I put it on and I sat down and the butt ripped open. Classic 80s. Nothing fit women normally. Like 80s clothings were so unforgivable to women with butts and hips and anything, any sort of figure. So that's the closest I ever got to, but it had the same color. And I remember because when I bought it, I was like, this is like Judith Light and Mother Murderer podcaster,
Wife,
Mother
Mother,
Murderer.
Murderer.
When she
I
walks
know.
in as Terry, and I'm like, oh, I want that outfit. I thought they at first I was like, oh, they're all turning because they're like, wow, look at that awesome jumpsuit. She looks fabulous.
And she comes in, it's such a scream. She comes in with this blonde wig, like Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors. She's like,
Yeah.
like, hello, Mr. Mushnick. Like, it's incredible. I it's so funny because like if you see pictures of the real Audrey Marie Hilley, she does not look like a drag queen going to a Baptist church, but Judith Light does. She and you can tell because like all of the other people in the movie look all the other women look like regular women, and
Yeah.
then there's Marie with
Oh,
her looks. And
yes.
that sets the tone. The outfits in this. Oh, there's another great one. It's a sort of purple dress with all of these light purple lines over it that kind of look like a spider's web. Like she's a black widow with this web drawing men into it. Um, but
Oh,
it
and I have to say
Mhm.
that moment where they're in the motel and it's like the saddest moment. It's the saddest moment outfit wise because you like see like they really so when she's in the motel and she has that raincoat and her hair and
She's
it's
visiting
towards
from it's when
prison
she got the permission to visit her husband from prison.
and it's very clear she's been unmasked. Like it's very clear like everything about her is like she carries herself in this very sad way. It's like the sad it's like really the saddest moment to me. I'm like, wow, that really hits home. She's
Well,
wearing
it's
these awful clothes. She looks horrible. She looks really sad. I
well,
know.
we don't really feel sad about the husband because we didn't get to know him beforehand. That's one of the things we don't really get to know any of the other characters like that well. So we
Yeah.
don't really care. I mean, Carol's very nice, but
Yeah.
uh, I thought yeah, with Judith Light as Marie, I think the thing that she really got was that she is performing Marie performing, you know, and she
Yes.
plays Marie like a person who's constantly acting, and she's performing these like class signifiers. She's like a genteel southern lady, and she has the right accent and the right hair and the right clothes, and which throws people off the scent, and it makes people not suspect her. But then the way that it's done, it's like it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too much of a performance. Her clothes are a little too flashy, her hair is a little too big. She's
Yes.
trying too hard. And so I think that's why, like, some people don't fall for it, some people do, but some don't. And it's not quite enough to like get her a rich husband, you know, because they can
Yeah.
kind of like they can
Yeah.
kind of see it. They're like, oh, there's something a little off there. And and then also it's like she's living in this kind of fantasy, this soap opera fantasy in her head, in this over the top kind of, she wants this over the top kind of life, and so she makes this over the top look. So I thought, I didn't think that it was at all accidental that she's a little bit drag queeny. I thought that that was like a distinct choice that Judith Light made, and it was smart.
When you just said that statement about she's performing as someone who's performing, and then I immediately thought of Showgirls because
Yeah.
Know Me, to me, the reason why I think Showgirls is such an amazing film, and people are like, oh, it's so no. And I'm like, no, especially in this day and age where if you've ever been to Hollywood or if you've ever been around people who are club kids or in any sort of fame driven or attention seeking world, you'll know that people that haven't really worked or been in the performing arts but kind of think they're in a movie, they live like they're in a movie, they act like No Me and Showgirls, like they act like
Mm-hmm.
that, like I'm always on camera, you know, like I'm always performing, look at me, I'm in a music video, that's why I dance so hard, and and
Mm-hmm.
I've met and interacted with those people a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Where do you
think
come from? Different places.
yes, ketchup. Like the ketchup bottle. Like it's to me it's I think that's why this movie, to me, I
Well,
can watch this movie anytime. It's fun.
it is. And that is,
Should be.
you know, that's something that I found really interesting about this movie, is that this is an incredibly dark story, but um it's such a light movie, you know, because if you look at the way that Marie is, um, I mean, she's a sociopath. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she's able to like stroke her sick daughter's hair and then say, "Oh, let me give you an injection to help. Let me feed you some baby food because you can't eat anything else, and the baby food has rat poison in it." You know, I mean, she is like nothing inside except the stuff that she wants, which is, you know, money and prestige and class and this sort of fantasy of wealth and cleanliness and beauty. Um, but uh, yeah, if we had an entirely accurate portrait of a sociopath like that, this would be a very rough film to take. But instead, it plays on this other aspect of the story, which is the, oh my God, she didn't. Oh my God, wait, no, no. And then, no, what? And and that is the part that it plays on instead, is just like the ratcheting up the insanity to 10, 11, 15, 55. Um, and that's where this movie gets its engine from, I think.
Well, that was interesting because remember when I was telling you about this film, I was like, uh, okay, well, so she's married to her husband for like 20 years, and then out of the blue, she decides, she poisons him, and
Mm-hmm.
then she poisons her daughter. And then I was like, she flees and she goes undercover as this woman named Robbie, meets this guy, and then I'm like, and then she fakes her death and comes back as her identical twin sister named Terry.
Yes.
You were like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, and you were like, oh my God. I was like, I can't, yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
because like the audacity, like the cojones to think that you can get away with that, to think that you can get away with all of that. And later on, I want to go over like the real Audrey Marie Hilley and some of the
Yeah.
stuff that she did that they didn't put in the movie. And she, in real life, she had even more guts to just be like, all right, just she didn't care. She did not give a fuck.
Well, on RuPaul's Drag Race, they're always like, we're looking for, and nerve. They're always like,
Oh,
do you
yeah.
have the nerve? And
The nerve.
I'm like,
Yes.
well, like what on a scale of Audrey Marie Hilley, what nerve are you looking for? Because there's a lot of do you have the nerve there? Like,
Yes. Oh my God. And she's such an operator too. Like the way that she talks to men and the way that
mm,
she talks to her husband, her husbands, um, just giving them exactly what they are expecting, talking to them kind of like their babies or little boys. And she's such an operator and um always analyzing a situation and using it and creating a narrative. And it just seems exhausting to be like she must have been so smart to just be constantly analyzing every situation and then making shit up, because that seems like a lot to me.
well, yeah, and I mean it's because we have a lot going on in our lives that we've dedicated our time to. So, but if
Yes.
if 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 we didn't, and this was our, you know, like such as I think, didn't you say someone was like she should have just been a romance novelist? It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's why it's important to give careers to women.
Yeah, it's
You
it's
know,
true.
otherwise they'll kill
uh,
you.
just the narratives that she came up with were so kind of melodrama romance novel. And apparently
Yeah.
they didn't show it in the movie, but apparently she read a lot and uh, was obsessed with those sorts of books, kind of romance novels and melodramas and things like that. And I think that she really saw herself, she wanted to make her life that way. And so and it's funny because it's like she wanted to be this tragic heroine who's like, my husband is dying. So then she kills her husband. She like slowly kills him so she can go around saying, my husband's dying. And it creating these things. And it's like she can somehow block that out and forget that her husband's dying because she's doing it to him, and then just enjoy all the attention, or set fire to her house and then be like, someone's trying to kill me. And
I have no words other than
yeah,
oh my God. I mean, what
yeah, it's
I do think
amazing.
she would have been very successful in show business.
Yeah, yeah, I think
I feel like her
yes.
true calling would have been to be like, I mean, to to go out to LA and be a television writer. She could like because she was like what did they describe her as? Like she was described as a not a girl's girl. Like she, she did not get along with other women and kind of snuffed them out in a way to get the male approval.
Yeah.
I think she would have done well in 80s Hollywood
Yeah. Yeah. She
or
slept with her
corporate
bosses.
America. Or even, you know what, she would have done really well at the local like Walmart or any food chain. She would have been, assistant manager in no time and have all the
Yeah.
best hours and best shifts.
It's funny. I think that because she did work, but it seems like she changed jobs very frequently. I think because ultimately she didn't actually want to be working those jobs. She wanted to be a, a rich wife tending to her garden and just buying things all day.
That sounds
Uh,
awesome though. But I'm not going to
yeah,
kill
right.
anybody for that.
Yeah, right. So, um, now the movie's really about her, uh, and Carol a little bit, her
Hmm.
daughter, and this sort of relationship between them. Kelly Overbay, she's the one who plays Carol. Um,
Hmm.
that's really the other standout performance in this. She doesn't really get a lot to do, but occasionally she's very sweet and natural and sympathetic, and so it keeps us from sympathizing too much with Marie, because we could be like, yeah, Marie, like, get him. uh but Carol's so sweet. um and there's that scene with the prom dresses where she's like drowning in that prom dress, um and Marie's just looking at her like, I'm never going to make her into a little me. She's expendable. uh
Oh, and even okay, so one of the things they established right away is the disdain that Audrey has for her daughter's like, appearance in the opening after they go to the doctor and outside there's Carol is talking to her friend who's well dressed and you know Carol's like more dressed down and Audrey's like, "Oh, you look so nice," to Carol's friend. And what,
mhm.
why don't passive aggressive that thing that passive aggressive women do? "Oh, I wish if you just, would try, you could look as nice as her. I wish you didn't, said that right in front of her, Carol's friend, and Carol's friend's like, "Oh, okay. Well,
Mhm.
bye," and you could kind of tell that it establishes right on that dynamic between mother and daughter and kind of like that Audrey openly expresses her kind of disdain for her daughter and the way she is and her appearance. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I may as well bring up one of the big things that they did not mention in this TV movie, which of course they wouldn't in a 1991 TV movie, um, that Carol was lesbian, and
Well, yeah,
that she
good for
was
her.
having she was like, having romances with other girls, and her mother found out about it and was really angry about it. And if you see Carol now, she's like a full on like butch, short hair, like wearing flannel,
Yeah.
like a big fan of
Indigo Girls.
football. Yeah, exactly, a classic lesbian.
I like those
And
classic lesbians.
yes. And I think that was really, um, because another big thing that this movie left out is that, um, Marie had a son named Mike. And then Carol was born 7 years after Mike. So she was an accident. And so I think Marie was already like, she didn't necessarily want her. She's getting in the way. And then she wanted, she has a girl and she can't dress her up and make her pretty and feminine. This girl is nothing like her. And then she finds out that she's a lesbian, and that's just it. But she loved her son. She was crazy about him. Um, so it hints at that. It's like got her and her best friend, and they're always hanging out together. And there's like a little bit of that, but they don't lean into it. It's just a little hint, a little uh, a hint of
Yeah,
lesbianism. But
a hint of
um,
lesbian, little hint of
mhm.
lesbian for you.
Yes, with a yeah, a little soupçon of lesbian. Um, but um, but yeah, no, Carol is an important part, and I think she's very good on the witness stand at the end, when she's like, because they make her break down a lot. There's that scene where they're like, you have to testify against her, and she's like, but she's my mama.
She's that's she's my mama.
Yeah. And she sells it. God bless her. Um, but oh, one I wanted you to talk about the score in this
Oh,
movie, which is done
I love this score.
by Mark
This is one of
Snow,
yes.
who did the
This is one of my
X-Files theme.
all-time yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite TV movie scores and from the opening talk about a sophisticated score. It is sublime. The use they use a piano theme and it's very, it's a minor key and it's very subtle, but they do an excellent job by establishing it right away and giving Audrey Marie her own theme. Like they give that theme and it's very sophisticated um in a way we haven't really seen in a TV movie thus far because the TV movies that we have covered on our channel. I'm not saying it hadn't exist because there were
Mhm.
other TV movies that had really good scores in the early 80s that we'll cover
Yeah.
later on our channel, but this one particularly uh had a very thematic, sophisticated score.
It was lovely, and sort of melancholy, and it brought, it did bring a sense of gravity, and gave a feeling of stakes to it.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated the opening where the pianos because they set the tone with how Eva was edited. Like, she's getting ready, and this thematic, kind of like melancholy, but also kind of uh oh, like it's melancholy for sure, but it's also not I would say like a funeral mass melancholy. It's melancholy in a plotting way, like in a mysterious way. Like who is this person? What is
Yeah.
making them tick?
And
And it plays over her getting ready and that establishes her theme and how she sees herself. And they did such a good job of pairing those two together to establish every time you hear that she's plotting and it's kind of moving like a spider the way that
yeah.
the spacing and the the way they had the notes arranged and everything time duration was really good.
Yeah. And that opening, that credit sequence is really interesting too, just the visuals of it, because she's getting ready for her husband's funeral, and she's sort of like admiring herself, and okay,
Yes.
and sort of like, ooh, and just like, let me put my perfume on down here. Ooh. And it's like, why is she acting like this is her husband's funeral.
By Judith Light's performance in that opening sequence, she doesn't look like she's it looks like she's getting ready to go on a date. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like she's going to a funeral.
Yeah, exactly. And she is sort of, she's getting, because the next thing that she does is go out, find a job, and then start having an affair with her boss.
Yes.
who's like super gross too. um
Yeah. Uh,
but but I think, yeah, the score in this is really strong. Just I think like the filmmaking in this is very strong. I think it it does a really good job of establishing atmosphere, and you really feel like you're in the South. And it, it's interesting. The pacing of this movie is interesting because, like, she's arrested for the first time, and her daughter is diagnosed with arsenic poisoning like 35 minutes into the movie. And it's an hour and a half, it's a 90-minute movie. And so it really is going along at a lightning fast pace. It's and somehow they really do manage to have these great character moments. But I it in some points it feels like it's a little rushed. Like, I thought it was strange that Marie disappears. They didn't show her in jail after being arrested at the hospital, and they didn't show her in the woods. They kept that part mysterious after after escaping. Um, but and I think that them removing some of this stuff that happened in real life was just so that they didn't have to turn this into a two-part miniseries, so that they could keep it
exactly.
tight. Here, let me go through. I'm going to go through here.
Okay.
So first of all, the movie portrays Marie as having this deprived, grim kind of Joan Crawford childhood that she's trying to escape. And she didn't really. Like, her parents were mill workers, but apparently they spoiled her, and they didn't deny her anything, and they worked long hours to make as much money as they could, and other relatives looked after her. Um, but doing that, giving her this grim childhood kind of gives her a clear motivation that's recognizably human, rather than just being a sociopath. And then when she met Frank, her first husband, she was 14 and he was 18. She married him when she was 16. Um, and then, yeah, Carol was born, then they had Mike. Carol was born 7 years later. But Frank seemed to like her to kind of boss him around and spend his money. He couldn't tell her no. And that seems to be like what one of her that's how she chose husbands, was like men who will not tell me no. And then she her son Mike, he went to, I guess, seminary school. And then after he left, the house started sort of falling apart, and Frank had a drinking problem and all of this stuff. And Marie and Carol were fighting a lot because Carol was a lesbian. Um, and then there's this whole part that they didn't talk about, where this neighborhood girl named Sonia, who's a friend of Carol's,
Yes.
died suddenly of a mysterious illness after spending time at the Hilleys' house over Christmas. And it seems, with the circumstances, it seems like she might have been poisoned. But after Marie was found out, apparently they examined Sonia's body and there was no arsenic found in her system. So she genuinely died of some mysterious illness, but it was like that gave Marie an idea. She was like, oh, somebody can just die of a mysterious illness and it's unexplained, oh. And I feel like that, because after that she was having an affair with her Marie was having an affair with her married boss. And then one day Frank came home and found Marie in bed with her boss. And then not long after that, she started poisoning her husband. And then after her husband died, there's this whole thing where her son Mike and his her pregnant daughter-in-law, who is named Terry, moved in with her after they got married to save money. And then they were going to move out. And then she got mad that they were planning to leave. She didn't want Mike to go. So then she set fire to her own house after they left. They moved away, and then she set fire to her own house so that she and Carol had to move in with Mike and Terry while her house was being repaired. And then while that house was being repaired, then or once that house had been repaired and they had to move back, then she set a fire in Mike and Terry's apartment. So they had to move in with her. And
Jesus. Talk about being very indirect.
and then so then she was reporting to the police all of these mysterious harassing phone calls and fires. So then some of the cops who were investigating these fires visited her house, and she poisoned their coffee, which they only realized later. They were like, oh, did you get kind of sick every time that you went and visit that Hilley lady? Oh, I did too. Oh, it's because our coffee was poisoned. And then she started while Terry and Mike were still living with Marie, then Terry started getting sick. And over this long period of time, just like with Carol, she was poisoning her. And finally they moved out and Terry survived, but she had a miscarriage. Like, so um Marie like killed her own grandchild.
Yeah.
Terry was able, she got better and she had another child. But it's just, so then, but then, oh my God, it doesn't even stop there. So then after that, she stole a credit card from Mike and she maxed it out and put him on the hook for all of the debt. And then Mike confronted Marie for her to, pay the credit card debt. So then she poisoned him. And then he got really sick and he had to go back home and drop the subject. And and then another thing to get money together to pay some of these debts, she contacted this guy that or one of her bosses that she'd had an affair with, and told him that she had cancer and that she needed money for cancer treatments, so that then would give her money so that she could like pay off her credit card bills. um
Jesus
and
Christ.
I know. And then I guess Mike was the one who tipped off the police that he was like, all these people are getting sick. My wife got sick. Carol's sick. My father, he put it together and contacted the police and was like, I think she's been poisoning people. Wow. I think that she poisoned my father. You should check out his body and test it for arsenic, like they found with my sister, because I think that she killed him too. Then also were very indirect about this. It was not clear when she became Robbie, it wasn't clear what she was doing. But in real life, when she became Robbie, she started hooking, and she met her second husband as a client, and she told him that he was her first client ever, which was a lie. um and that he could like save her, he saved her from the life. It was that whole thing. But then with the whole lesbian thing, after she'd been caught and everything at the trial, one of the witnesses at the trial was a woman who was in jail with Marie in Vermont, who said that Marie had told her that she had tried to kill her daughter because her daughter is a lesbian. And then other people testified that Marie, they'd seen Marie being homophobic. And then her son, Mike, said on the stand at her trial that when he spoke to Marie, which was the first time that he'd spoken to her in 3 years while she was in jail, the first question she asked him was, is Carol still a homosexual?
Oh
So
my God.
So can you imagine, like, because we've been doing all these two-part miniseries, can you imagine a two-part? It would get
This
to
would
be
be
a bit much.
a three-part mini series.
Because but I think after a while it would just be so absurd, because it would just be like, and then they're drinking a coffee, and then there's threatening music in the background. Like, you could really listen, you could really do like a drag show with this,
You
if
could.
you just made the hair like 20% bigger, and you didn't even, you wouldn't even have to change the wardrobe, and then you just have her being like, but first, would you like some coffee? And
Yeah.
then,
Is Carol still a homosexual?
yeah,
You
I
know.
mean, really. um but what do you think makes this movie so much fun?
Judith Light's performance and the clothes.
Yeah.
I think I think because well the director establishes a really good sense of tone and the
Hmm.
filmmaking's really tight. But it's not overt. Like it's not like Showgirls where the lights are really bright and everything's really slick and everyone's really sexy and like it's
Hmm.
everything's heightened. It's just heightened enough. I mean, what made it for me was just like especially I love the scene where she's sitting, she's sitting and all the women are like when she walks away and they're all like being mean girls are like I oh she's talking again and that girl's like I like her and everyone turns on her like and then she's God it's her Maggie it's her identical twin like just the tone and that is really relatable. I honestly feel like they made the movie from the point of view of Maggie from beginning to end.
Wait,
Like
from Maggie?
Maggie is the woman who doesn't buy her story.
Yes,
Is the
yes.
HR lady from the
Hmm.
get-go who's like I don't buy it. I don't trust her. I don't like her.
Yeah, and that's what, when Marie is like, it was so hard when my husband and children died, oh, and like dabbing at her eyes with the handkerchief, and then during the job interview, and then Maggie's like, oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
very stoic and unmoved, like anyone who's worked for a long time
Mm,
with the public. But I feel like the kind of whole movie was almost as if Maggie was retelling it.
hmm.
Like it really felt like that because I had that skeptical point of view of here's this woman performing,
Hmm.
and we know she's an imposter. Like we know she's not who she says she is. But I think personally that's why it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and I think that that the movie being sort of based around like this shock of discovery, and because they don't tip it off, it would have been, you could make a very different movie where that she's poisoning them, and you see it, and it would just be this horrible sort of character study of sociopathy. But instead it's like, why are these people dying? What's happening? At a certain point, because once she's injecting Carol, like, if you don't guess that she's poisoning her, then I don't, it's very obvious at that point. But it's all about, it's that like, no, no, what? Oh my God. And that aspect of it, it just makes it, um, just watching it get crazier and crazier, I think was the fun of it, and that I want to show it to people so that I can watch them go, what? Oh my God, and gag and scream. And because I was gagging and I was screaming and I was like, what, oh my God,
I know.
so Um, and then so we've got that sort of distance from Marie, and we can kind of enjoy her performance and just the over the topness. So then the whole thing is, it's just sort of fun. It's like it's a hoot, um in the way that I don't know, it feels like a friend telling you about uh about a true crime thing, when a friend is like, you'll never guess what happened, so then she
Yes.
did this, and
Yes.
then, and you're, what, that's how it feels. It feels like somebody telling you this story that they just read in the newspaper. um
Yes.
and
Like
there's
a
something.
like the way they would talk about women in beauty shops when I was growing up. They'd be like,
Yes.
and then she did this, which now, yeah, all true crime podcasters do. And then she did this. Can you believe
Yes.
this? Can you believe this?
I had not seen this movie before, but I am now, so I am proud to have our podcast named after this movie in a way. And I feel like it's, yeah, this is one of the great, like, 90s TV movies, I think. Right? Would you
Yes,
agree?
I agree. I
Okay.
this Wife, Mother, Murder, and Death of a Cheerleader are my two tops.
Got
I
it.
watch
Got
them
it.
like once a week. I put it on. It just, for some reason, they just, my mom, I had Death of a Cheerleader on last night, and she was like, I don't like this Stacy. She should die. I'm like, Mom, it's 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 I'm like, no, it's a drama. It's completely one-sided. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, very one-sided, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. She's
Um,
like, she's so mean. I don't like what you did to that girl. She shouldn't have read her diary.
I mean, yes, it's true. But that's, in a way, it's like we're looking at these movies critically, and we're going in and being like, what are they saying? What are they not saying?
Yeah.
What are they? But that's not the way I think that TV movies are meant to be watched. TV movies are meant to be watched that way. It's like,
Take
you're supposed to
sides.
kind of eat them whole, and
Yeah.
just experience it.
Yeah.
um but I think that it's interesting and it's fun, and it's kind of a sign of respect to those filmmakers to not necessarily just do that, but to look at it a little deeper and be and give it that sort of critical gaze that people don't usually give them, you
Yeah.
know
I'll tell you, especially the TV movies that were made in the 80s uh, and early 90s were really well made, especially up against even your Netflix and Amazon Prime films today, because a lot of times the filmmaking looks good, but it's actually just really good post production versus really
mm,
good film production.
yeah, being
Like, they
shot
make the
beautifully.
After Effects look really good. They're really good at digitizing it and doing really oversaturated looks, but it's not necessarily well thought out or well made. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. um So I thought then it jumped out to me which monologue we should do for our Mary Catherine Gallagher monologue. Every episode, we do a Mary Catherine Gallagher monologue, which is a tribute to the SNL character played by the great Molly Shannon, who always recites TV movie monologues. Um, and so here, I found we seem to have this dynamic going
Yes.
where I play the campy mother and you play the daughter. So
Yes, I love it.
just a second, I'm gonna get um I'm gonna get my personality on really quick.
Okay.
Here we go.
You look stunning.
All right.
How do you want to do the slap?
I'll just slap the camera and you can react. Um,
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to check.
my feelings would be best expressed in a monologue from the TV movie Wife, Mother, Murderer, starring Judith Light,
Okay.
multiple Tony winner and Emmy winner Judith Light.
Yes.
Um,
Let me know.
so Marie and Carol are in a car in the front and passenger seats. They pull up to a rundown shack. Marie is wearing a blue and green patterned dress with a matching green necklace and perfectly coiffed hair. Carol is wearing a flannel shirt with simple straight hair and no makeup. Okay.
Why do you always do this?
So you can see where I came from and appreciate where we're going.
Now you're going to drive up the hill to where you think you're going to belong.
Growing up here didn't stop me from being voted the prettiest girl in Anniston. All Calhoun County, for that matter. I think you should have a boyfriend by now.
I had one.
He wasn't good enough for you. You're a Hilley. You could do better than Ronnie Hallman. You could do better than this. When I was your age,
You had dozens of boyfriends.
as a matter of fact, I did. I had my pick and choose, more than a few from up on the hill.
Why do you marry Daddy then?
Don't you get fresh with me. Your father was a wonderful man. Those times, y'all didn't just cross, you know? It had always been them and us. And I could speak French too. Well, I guess we better be going. Scene.
I could not look at you because I wanted to laugh so hard. I was like, don't look. Just look away. Look away. Look away. As they say in that song, I wish my heart was in Dixie, the Southern song, and they're like, look away. Look away. Just look away. That's what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah. And I was doing
It was
Blanche.
fantastic.
I was doing Blanche from Golden Girls.
Yeah.
That was the one that I could speak French. Oh.
I can speak French fry.
Oh, Marie. Um, I have to say again, if you're going to, I highly recommend this movie, and if you're going to watch it, have some friends over, have some drinks, and have like if you can beforehand, maybe take some egg cartons or some sort of heavy fabric and put it over the walls, because you're probably going to be screaming and upsetting your neighbors because you're going to
This
be,
could be the new Rocky Horror Picture Show.
oh my god, yeah, oh totally. um
It could be.
yeah, just screaming back at it, being like, don't eat that baby food. There's rat poison in that baby food.
And people throwing rats at each other.
Yeah, people coming to the theater with like great big bubble wigs, and
yeah, and every time when she changes her identity, you can change
then you take off another. Oh my god. Oh, that would be wonderful. That would be another thing, the drag number, where you could have like a wig under a wig under a wig.
Yeah. That would be so fun.
I think that's it. We've got it. So
yes.
everybody.
So
Thank you so much for listening. And what you were going to say?
I was going to say, rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, sub to our YouTube channel. I've been posting old VHSs that have random things I found on them and TV movies that y'all might enjoy. A lot of commercials from the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And follow us on Instagram, TikTok at Mother Murderer Podcaster.
Yes. All right.
I bid
And
you
then-
a Judith Light day. Oh, yeah. Just before you guys go out for the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
when you go out for holidays, be careful what you eat. That's all I got to say. You don't know if your in-laws are going to be poisoning you this Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Be careful. This holiday season, this Thanksgiving, have somebody else try your food first. See what happens. Thank you so much. Bye.
We love you. Bye.